Hello again. Welcome back to my channel. I'm going to tell another story from the fourth section of my book, Hitchhiking Follies. This is a story which is a follow-up to the previous Canadian story I told. It is called Speaking in a Phony British Accent. Doc and Connie picked me up in their Chevy Nova just inside the boundary of Saskatchewan. They said they were only going 20 miles before turning off the main highway. They could drop me off on the highway, or if I wanted, I could go with them to a party in a cabin in the woods. Connie said the people in the cabin weren't exactly their friends, but a party was a party, right? If I was interested, the invitation was open to me. Doc said to Connie, "You better tell them who's giving the party." She called them hillbillies. She said they were all right when they weren't drinking. Doc asked her if she had ever seen them when they weren't drinking. She said she hadn't. Doc laughed. "Then how do you know they're all right when they're not drinking if you've never seen them in a state other than drinking?" She said she wished to retract her statement. "Okay, maybe they're not all right." I said I wasn't aware Canada had hillbillies. I thought they were exclusive to America. Connie said Canadian hillbillies were worse than American hillbillies. Doc asked her if she'd ever encountered American hillbillies. She said she hadn't. He told her she shouldn't make that comparison then. She conceded he had a point. Still, she couldn't imagine anyone being worse than Canadian hillbillies. Doc said she was probably right about that. He asked me if I had met American hillbillies. I said I had. It was settled then. I had to go to the party with them to determine whose country had worse hillbillies. Doc turned off on an unmarked dirt road and drove for several miles. The woods became dark and dense, unpopulated by houses. Connie said hillbillies like to live remote. Doc said it was because they like to live beyond the clutches of the law. Connie explained that they were poachers. Doc added that it wasn't only animals they poached, people too. Connie slapped Doc's arm and told him to stop scaring me. I said I wasn't scared. At least I know they wouldn't bite me like mosquitoes in Canada. Doc agreed. They wouldn't bite me, but they might shoot me. Connie said they weren't going to do any such thing. Doc said you never know, they don't like Americans. I asked Doc if I should avoid telling them I was American. He said they'd probably know I was from the smell, since they possessed acute olfactory senses. He laughed, and so did Connie. I wondered if I would have been better off getting off on the highway. Connie said if it got bad, they would leave early. "If they let us," Doc added. A sign hung from the overhang of the cabin's front door. "This home doesn't call 911. The cabin was small, crowded, and loud with the voices of men. A large, bearded man approached me. He wore blue overalls and no undershirt beneath them. His naked chest was dotted with little hairs and sweat. He wore a cap on his head. He gave Doc and Connie bear hugs. He stared at me, his eyes red and blazing, his face flushed, his breath running over my face. He sniffed and said, "You're an American, aren't you?" Doc and Connie had already left my side to meet and talk with other people. I remembered what the old Englishman a year earlier in Austria had told me, that a lie could travel halfway around the world while the truth was still putting on its shoes. If I needed to lie to travel around the world, to survive, that's what I would do. I told them I wasn't American. I was British, switching my accent to accommodate the lie. "Hello, pleased to meet your acquaintance," I said. "That's the worst fucking English accent I ever heard," he said. "Let me see your passport." I gulped. "Passport? Yes, that's right, your passport, if you're really British. I don't have it with me. It's back in Winnipeg, where I'm staying. Winnipeg? What the fuck is Winnipeg? It's the capital of Manitoba. Manitoba? He grabbed my arm and brought me into the room where I became sandwiched between him and another man in overalls. His were white. He was kind enough to wear a black t-shirt under them. He wore a tiger-striped hat that flared to the side. He, unlike the large man, was skinny. Both of them were tall, well over 6 feet, dwarfing me. The large man, whose name I would soon learn was Wee Willie, said to the tall, skinny man, "Hey, Doob, I want you to listen to this short man's accent. You tell me if it sounds authentically British." He told me to say something to Doob. I stuck out my head and said, "Hello, pleased to meet your acquaintance." "Where's his fairy wings?" Doob said to Wee Willie. "His sounding like a fairy with all that pleased to meet your acquaintance shit is beside the point," Wee Willie said. "What I want you to tell me is whether he sounds like a real Brit." "Talk again," Doob said to me. "Thank you for the honor of allowing me into your home," I said. "He sounds like something that's not human," Doob said. Another man came by. He wore a camouflaged cap, floral pattern boxer briefs, and nothing else. He handed Doob and Wee Willie cans of Labatt Blue Canadian beer. "Who the fuck is this guy?" he said to his friends. "I don't know, Tater," Wee Willie said, "but he talks with a phony accent." "Let's hear him talk," said Tater. "Talk," Wee Willie said to me. I looked for Doc and Connie. I didn't see them. I saw a bear-skinned rug on the floor. On the wall, there was a poster that read, "I kill animals and eat them." "Talk," Wee Willie said again. He grabbed my neck with his powerful hand. "I can't talk if you're choking me," I squealed. Tater cried out, "He's a New Yorker." "A communist," Wee Willie said. I knew it the moment I spotted him. "A fairy communist," Doob added. Connie came by just in the nick of time. "What are you boys doing to the poor young lad?" she asked. "This fucker you brought over has multiple personalities," Wee Willie said. "How do you mean?" she said. "He came in talking British, and now he's talking like a New Yorker." Wee Willie wanted to know what I was, Jewish, Puerto Rican, Arab, or something that wasn't human, like Doob had said. I told him I was Irish and Italian. "A wop from New York," Wee Willie said. "Just as bad in these parts," Tater said. "Should we dispose of him here in these woods?" Doob said. "What for?" Connie said. "For impersonating a British person," Wee Willie said, "and doing it poorly. Or for being a wop New Yorker communist, which is the worst kind of communist," added Tater. He pointed to the bear rug. "See that? It's dead, and now we step on it. That might be you." Connie pulled me away from them and led me into the kitchen, where she introduced me to the only women in the cabin. There were 3 of them, sisters named Clarabelle, Sarabelle, and Maribel. Their last name was Pickens. They wore cowboy hats, flannel shirts, jeans, and boots. I spoke in my normal New York voice with them. They laughed and said they didn't understand a word I was saying. Wee Willie barged in with another large man who wore a Confederate flag bandana with black-colored clothing up and down. He asked me if I knew who he was. I told him I didn't. He said his name was Henry Hank Pickens, brother of the 3 girls. Henry Hank wanted to know who brought me to their party. Connie said she did. Doc came in and asked Henry Hank what was wrong. Henry Hank said he didn't like the looks of me. "You should hear him talk," Wee Willie said. "What's wrong with the way he talks?" Doc asked. "He talks like a Brit," Wee Willie said. He's not a Brit, Doc said. Exactly, Wee Willie said. He's an American, a wop communist American. Are you really American? Henry Hank wanted to know. I told him I was. Can you imitate Jimmy Carter? He asked. I shook my head. No. Do it, Henry Hank said. I tried my best Jimmy Carter impersonation, recalling a line I heard him speak on an earlier State of the Union address. I feel your pain, fellow Americans, but we must adjust to changing times and still hold to changing principles. That doesn't sound like Jimmy Carter at all, Henry Hank said. What kind of American are you? Can you imitate James Callahan? Wee Willie asked. Who's that? I said. The fucking Prime Minister of Britain, he said. In a British accent? Yeah, that's right, in a phony fucking British accent. We must do all we can to preserve the commonwealth of this great country. I implore all of you in this magnificent House of Lords. They stared at me for a good 2 or 3 seconds. Then Henry Hank said, You make a better Brit than an American, only that accent, as Wee Willie said, sucks. You need to work on it if you hope to fool anyone. I told him I promised to practice the moment I left. What makes you think you're going to leave, he said. I usually shoot someone who talks to my sisters, especially if he's American. He put his hand on the back of my neck and squeezed. Wee Willie asked Hank if he should go get Henry Hank's shotgun in the shed. Connie stepped in and told Henry Hank that she and Doc had to leave. Henry Hank said that was fine, but I had to stay. I said I couldn't stay. Henry Hank said that decision wasn't up to me. I looked at Doc and Connie. Doc shrugged. He said he had a feeling this might happen. Connie told Henry Hank to stop abusing me. Couldn't he see that I was scared? Henry Hank said he could. That was the point. Connie slapped at his arm. Have a heart, Henry Hank, she said. Henry Hank squeezed my neck again. He's lucky I'm in a good mood tonight, he said. Does that mean I could leave? I said. You have to say one more thing in a phony British accent, he said. I took a deep breath and I said, A lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is still at home putting on its shoes. He stared at me again for 2 or 3 seconds, and then he asked, Do you even know who said that? I believe it was Mark Twain, I said. Wrong, he said. It was Winston Churchill. Sorry, I said. He said I should be sorry for talking in a phony accent, for not knowing who said the line, for being an American. He told me to leave before he changed his mind and buried me in the garden outside the shed, which wasn't a garden, just a patch of dirt and weeds where he kept the bones of people he didn't like. We left. Thank God. Connie apologized for their behavior. Doc said he had warned me. He wanted to know which hillbillies were worse. I said the Canadians, by far. Connie slapped Doc's arm. You see? She said, I told you. They dropped me off on the highway. I thanked them for the ride and said, I was pleased to meet your acquaintance. Connie laughed. She said I didn't have to speak in that phony British accent anymore. I told her I didn't know I was.